of the morning, good people. Double the Innocence with your boy E-Dub here. Wait a couple minutes and see if we're going to get a couple of people up here to join. And if not, we're just going to jump right into it. Send some shout outs to Grant Brothers Gym. Shout out to Kwame Brown Bus Life. Carcino for Life. Dreamers Pro. Ticket TV. That's a beast out here on the content creating world. Trust me. Up to date and accuracy. If you're really interested in people that have an opinion, an honest opinion, those are the individuals you guys should check out. Now, I'm up here and I'll be up here probably for the rest of the week trying to lobby for Anthony Edwards. Why? Because I'm an individual. I like Anthony Edwards. I like the talent that he has to offer. I think that he's going to be one of the future up-and-coming stars, and he's going to have a lot to add to this game. And I don't want this guy to be crucified for the nonsense that comes out of his mouth. For the simple fact of the matter that he's 23 years of age, and it's to be expected. Immature statements like what he made is to be expected. For all of us individuals that are a little bit older, I want you guys to just take a step back and think. When we were in our 20s, think about the stuff that we used to say and do back then. And now close your eyes and put yourself physically back into that era. Could anybody have told you what you were saying, what you were feeling, what you were doing was wrong? Absolutely not. Do I feel that the statement that he made about, there was no quality talent back in the eras before, do I feel that that was an intelligent statement? Absolutely not. I think that was probably one of the most ridiculous statements that somebody could have made. Especially somebody who's a part of that association, the NBA. It's an individual that obviously didn't do any type of research whatsoever to back up his statement. He just went off the top of the dome, off the top of his head. And you got to understand something, just like Kevin Garnett said. If you're going to make asinine statements coming for them, then you got to be prepared for the backlash when they decide to defend it. Because for you to sit back, how you doing, sir? Cutest dog. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the support. For you yourself to make a statement like that and think you're not going to get some backlash, you're not going to get some pushback, you must be living in some kind of fantasy world, bro. Now, not because we have the young talents like the John Morants of the world and the Anthony Edwards and those guys, not because we have these guys out there and we're watching them fly over people and dunk over people, doesn't mean to say that they're gonna have the most intelligent things to add to a conversation. Now, for a young 23-year-old player like an Anthony Edwards to make a statement like that, just like I said, obviously he did absolutely no research. Obviously, zero research whatsoever. Because if he did do any kind of research, you would have seen that there was a whole bunch of beasts back in the day. You had guys like Tim Hardaway, Rod Strickland. And this is just to name a few off the top of my head. I mean, we could go down the list. They may not have won any championships, but these guys were beasts back in the day that played in that era and could also play in this era. Unfortunately, we can't say the same thing for all the new generation players. As nice as they look out here in this era right now, there's 90% of these players could not play back in those eras. So ask yourself one question. Which era really does not have that much talent then, if that is the case? I'm trying to read a comment here. I hear you. I hear you. But if you notice, a lot of the people that are making these assessments about the generation before, a lot of them are young. I mean, in my era of coming up, I never heard Michael Jordan make a statement like that about the era before him. I never heard Kobe Bryant make a statement like that about the era before him. I never heard the Tracy McGrady's, the Vince Carters make statements like that about the eras before them. They showed those eras respect. It's this new generation right now that's missing that key aspect of the respect factor. Now, for you to make a now for Anthony Edwards to make a statement like that and think he's not going to ruffle some feathers, obviously it wasn't well thought out. Obviously. You're absolutely correct. Each era does have their own superstars, and that's why I'm going to be one every time I come up here on these YouTube streets and I'm creating content. I'm going to be the one trying to push the agenda of not comparing eras, because of the fact of the matter that people are focusing so much time on comparing eras. That's the reason why we're getting such sour taste for players like a LeBron James, because you want to compare him to another great instead of just allowing him to be great in the era that he's in. And because of the mere fact of the matter that you have a couple of old school individuals like myself that aren't swallowing that pill, then you want to try and then they're trying to taint it with numbers and all that type of stuff. Hey, numbers mean something, but numbers don't mean as much as people make it seem to be. Because like if you put logic behind anything, if any player plays for 20, 25 years, they're going to be up there in numbers. Michael Craig, thank you. But realistically speaking, even though people are upset about what Anthony Edwards had to say, I just don't want anybody to hold it against him. I want people to just take into consideration the fact of the matter that he's a young man. Take his age into consideration. Not because we watch him on TV and we think of him as some sort of NBA superstar. You still got to take the age into consideration. And with age comes maturity. I'm quite sure if somebody interviews Anthony Edwards at the age of 33, he won't be saying the same asinine statements that he's making right now at the age of 23. In my humble opinion. The reason why people love Charles Barkley is because Charles Barkley was an individual that wasn't afraid to say it as is. He wasn't afraid to speak it and say it as is. So people appreciated his honesty, especially back then. Because before Charles Barkley came along, there was nobody like him. Everybody's tried to be politically correct with everything they said. You know, they had to. Charles Barkley was the only one that came out there and gave it to you in a language that everybody understood. So that's the reason why it worked for Charles Barkley. Anthony Edwards, if you are trying to take that same approach, then you got to at least make sure the stuff that's coming out of your mouth has some kind of merit and makes some kind of sense. Otherwise, all you're going to sound like is an idiot to some people and immature to others, like myself. That's it. The one thing I like is this, the mere fact of the matter that, you know what? They're starting to give a lot of pushback now, especially the players from before. The prior generation, they're finally starting to push back. Anything that they're hearing in the media that's not making sense to them, they're making sure that they're trying to correct that narrative. That's the part I really like. Isaiah Thomas came out, he had something to say about it. Magic Johnson came out, he had something to say about it. Kevin Durant came out, he had something to say about it. Paul Pierce voiced his opinion on what he had to say about it. I mean, there used to be a point in time, like before, like, you know, stuff would be said or whatever, and, you know, everybody would be politically correct. Everybody would make sure they say all the right things. But now, when something's being spoken out of term, it's being addressed. And that's the part I like. People keep pushing this agenda about LeBron James being the GOAT. Sean Kemp came out and had something to say about that. So, I understand when people don't want to listen to us content creators out here that are giving our opinion. But you guys have to listen to the opinion of those that played on the same level with these guys. You guys have to at least listen to them. You may not have to agree with them, but you at least have to give them that listening ear. Because if anybody would know what they're talking about, it would be those guys. Kevin Garnett said something very, very key. And that's probably going to ruffle a lot of the younger generation's feathers. But you know what? There possibly might be some truth to that. Kevin Garnett said that he doesn't think that 90% of this generation right now could have played back in that era. Reason being, it's not even so much with the talent. It's reason being because of the simple fact of the matter that there would have been nobody holding their hands. They weren't allowed to use cell phones in the locker room. There was no such thing as the step back threes. The defense was a lot more solid back in the previous era. They weren't allowed to dribble the air out of the ball 1,000 times before they decide to do something with it or make a decision of exactly what they wanted to do. Those are actual facts. So again, we need to start pushing that agenda. Stop comparing eras. Just appreciate the talent in the era that you're in. That's it. I personally don't want to hear anything about this era being better than the era before or the era before being better than this era. I know the era that I grew up in was great. I know that this era has some great players. The entire era that I grew up in was great. This era right now has some great players. That being said, people, I want you guys to share. I need you guys to like and subscribe to this channel. Help this channel grow. Double the Innocence ain't going nowhere, buddy. I'm going to be up here on these YouTube streets, giving my opinion and taking absolutely zero prisoners. Have yourself a blessed day. I might be back up here a little bit later. Deuces.